and welcome to the Camp Check podcast. Camp Check is a podcast brought to you by Team Clickbait. This podcast will primarily be about classic MMOs and classically inspired indie MMOs. Many of us already know us from our YouTube channels, but if this is your first time meeting us, hello and welcome to the podcast. We are a group of like-minded individuals who play classic and indie MMOs which we each have accompanying YouTube channels around where we upload videos, we stream, we've built communities around these MMOs. We all dabble and have interest in a variety of classic MMOs like EverQuest, Classic WoW, Ultima Online, as well as some of our upcoming classically inspired MMOs like Adrullan Online Adventures and Monsters and Memories. But our interests don't stop there. Since this is a variety podcast, we may talk about other games or hobbies that are not related to MMOs. So this crew you see in front of you, the three of us here, we're part of a larger MMO player group. As mentioned before, that group's named Clickbait. And you'll see some of the other guys from the Clickbait team come in and join us on the podcast depending on their availability in the future. Since this is our inaugural episode of Camp Check, we are still figuring things out and we have a lot of ideas to build up and improve the podcast over time. We're looking to deliver a pretty chill and laid back roundtable experience covering all kinds of topics related to the MMO genre. Current events, opinion pieces, patch reviews, and everybody's favorite, hot takes. You'll find it all here for your favorite classic and classically inspired MMOs. So before we get started with today's topic, let's get to know the team assembled in front of you. So we're going to start with Classic, and I'm going to ask you a few questions first, and then you can kind of get it kicked off. So Classic, tell us who you are. Tell us about your first MMO that kind of hooked you back in the day and why, and what MMO you're looking forward to in the future and why.
All right, what's going on, guys? I am Classic, so people call me at least. You can find me on YouTube primarily. The first MMO that hooked me was the one and only EverQuest. Started out playing JRPGs and ARPGs, and then the MMOs bursted onto the scene, and EverQuest being one of the first three-dimensional ones. It hooked me in with just probably the three-dimensional world, the grand scale, and the community aspect of it, where there's just a bunch of other real-life people across the world, who knows, that are all in there. So that was great. There's a lot of MMOs coming out that are in alpha or beta or early access, but the one I'm looking forward to the most is going to be Monsters and Memories. I think that one just calls to me the most. It's got some cooking to do, but that's the one I'm looking forward to the most out of the litany of offerings that there are now.
Awesome. Thank you, Classic. Okay, Slayheim, I'm going to ask you the same questions. Tell us who you are. What was your first MMO that hooked you and why? And what MMO are you looking forward to the most in the future and why?
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Slayheim. I'm a content creator on YouTube, and also I dabble in a little bit of Twitch streaming. I originally started doing Project 1999 videos, but I have a wide array of interests. But lately, I've kind of found my niche with indie MMOs. And so the first MMO that hooked me was EverQuest. There was just something about the box art and it really kind of drew me in. And honestly, I didn't really play much besides EverQuest for a few years, so that's the one that kind of really resonated with me. And the MMO that I'm looking forward to the most is Monsters and Memories for sure. I really love the ambience, the music, just the whole vibe in that game, the classes. It just seems like just kind of like an evolution from EverQuest and some other indie MMOs from back in the day, or kind of like the classically inspired games, So Monsters and Memories would definitely be it for me as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Slayheim. Well, my name is Skeletane, or Tane, as other people know me. I'm a fairly new YouTuber who started making videos on Project Quarm about my solo self-found Necromancer run, which was inspired by guys like Classic on the video today, Razman, Slayheim, and Wreck-It Rogue. These guys all inspired me from watching their streams, watching their videos to do my own. So I'm a new guy on the scene doing this thing. What was the first MMO that hooked me? Well, that was Ultima Online back in 1998. And the thing that hooked me on that game was the completely open world nature of it. Whereas like you can do anything, you can be anyone, and you can do whatever you want. I remember getting that box for Christmas and looking through the instruction manual like 50 times just to read about everything you can do in it. And I was like, I just couldn't believe that. Oh, you could be a merchant in that game, and that I'm like, you always have to play a warrior, but you didn't have to. You could be a merchant and just craft things all day. That sounded awesome. So that was the first MMO that hooked me before I got into EverQuest. The MMO I'm looking most forward to is our Adrullan Online Adventures. That game is just right up my alley. From not only the graphic style, I know it has kind of a Minecraft look, and it was based on that, but it has such a quaint kind of cute, uh, I don't know how to explain it, but there's something about the look of it that just is magical to me. And not only that, but the way that the game is created. The devs have so much love for the game. They're putting their heart and soul into it. They're taking their time in making that game. It's going to be amazing, and I know that I'll be spending a lot of time in Arjulin once that game goes live. All right. Thank you guys for that, for our intro. So here's our crew. And we're going to get in right now. We're going to step into the topic for today, which, if anyone has seen the thumbnail, they already know what that topic question is going to be. So let's get that one up on screen here. We're going to be talking about the EQL closed and pre order beta and our experiences with it. We have a lot of thoughts on this, a lot of ideas, a lot of experiences across the three of us, plus the rest of the Clickbait boys as well. They've all been playing it. We've all been playing since about May 15th. That's kind of almost two months here, 3 months, something like that, that we've had experience playing with it. So we have a decent opinion on what we think about most of the systems in there, even though the devs are changing them almost on a daily to a weekly basis. So let's get our first question on the screen here. And that is, what are our favorite aspects of EQL? So this is the first question. Is kind of the idea is to start this out with a broad 30,000 foot view of the game. So maybe not getting too much in the nitty gritty of the systems, but let's talk about what are the broad aspects of the game that we really like. So Classic, we're going to start with you, and you kind of give me a overview of what you think the broad aspects that you like of the game so far.
Sure. So far for me, a big part of it is the theory crafting, right? It's new, even though it's a classic game that we love. We all, or most of us, either played or really dove into EverQuest back in the day. And, it's going on like 28 years old. And so it's still got that familiarity of being in the universe of EverQuest. But at the same time, there's so many things that are different. Like the trio system, all of the different leveling up your gear, all of these other systems, you get to go in there, and even though you have the comfort of it being one of your favorite games that you're used to playing, there's still so much new stuff like around every corner. So that's a big part of it for me. Being able to get into some raids and do that kind of stuff, I really enjoy that because currently I play on Project Quorum as well, and we are in Luclin at this point. And so some of the older classic raids and Kunark and stuff like that, you don't really go back and do those any longer. So I like that you can still casually go and do these with a couple of your buddies and stuff like that. So that's a big part of it for me. I am interested to see where it ends up for me because I feel like part of the theory crafting and the learning of the new systems, it all feels a little bit like a honeymoon phase to me. So one of my curiosities is where I'll be with it after we've learned a lot of these new aspects of this version of EverQuest.
Awesome. Slayheim, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me personally, I never played classic EverQuest in its heyday, so it's just really fun to jump back into EverQuest. And so for me, I don't have a whole lot of time, and so I've gone back to EverQuest and all its different flavors and kind of iterations. But as Classic said, I really love the theory crafting aspect of it. You know, what are three different classes you could kind of put together and go on an adventure with? So it's just really cool to kind of jump into EverQuest, and also just the convenience. You know, if you have like 20 minutes before work, you can hop on on, and you kind of feel like you can at least make some progress, with how the instances are and the XP and whatnot. So I just really love being able to jump in whenever I feel like it, not have and because EverQuest is a solved game at this point, it's just really cool to have EverQuest and enjoy it without, corpse runs and whatnot. Stuff we've all been through. So that's what I really enjoy about it, the ease and accessibility, I guess, of one of our favorite classic MMOs.
Awesome. Well, I've got a bunch of stuff to say, but I'm going to agree with a few things you've already said. Slayheim, you talked about the kind of the magic of mixing the three classes and finding and theory crafting the ideas. And I think that is a huge part of it. There's so much fun in figuring out. I mean, I don't know how many times I've sat to create a new character. I'm like, man, I want to mix this, and then you're like, no, I want to mix that. Oh, I can't decide or land on things because they all sound cool, and sometimes even what you would consider a dumb combination sounds fun. So there's one thing I love about it. The big part for me, there's two. I'm going to mix kind of two things together: is the solo ability of it and the dad nature. We call it like a dad game or a dad camp, right? Where
Yeah.
you can solo and experience the game entirely by yourself because thanks to instancing, thanks to the tri class system. But then the dad nature of the game, where because of the solo ability, I can jump in and play for like 30 minutes or a minute. I'm sorry, for like an hour, and at least do something and maybe gain a level or maybe get some gear or whatever. Of course, I want to keep playing, but you have the ability to play for a short time. I think the accessibility for new players is actually a great aspect of the game. That you can get new people in here who maybe haven't played and have EverQuest in 20, 25 years, and they're getting back in, and it feels like the old days, and then they're able to also play with these new systems. They don't have to have that pressure of finding a group of friends to play with, or they don't have to raid with 50 people. I think that's great for newer players coming in or returning players. And then last one, really big one for me, which is there, and I mentioned this already. There's no group pressure. Like if you want to team up with a friend or with a small group of friends, you can do it, and there's no role pressure. You don't have to be like, oh, who's going to be the healer and who's going to be the tank, and it's like you don't have to worry about that. You just roll whatever. You guys are going to be fine. You're going to blow through the content. You're going to have a good time together. Um, and then if someone has to leave, there's no stress to, like, replace that spot. You're not like, "Oh, shoot, now I gotta go find somebody," like, "We need a healer, we need an enchanter." I think, like, that's a great aspect of the game is that no group pressure, no stress when you need to leave. So those are the parts I think of EQL that are my favorite aspects so far.
That's true. I didn't really think about those last couple that you mentioned there. Those are good.
Yeah.
Right, so the next question we've got here to talk about, let's see if I can get this to come up on screen properly. So I know we just kind of talked a little bit about it, but how was your experience with closed beta? So obviously we got in May. We've been playing since the middle of May, essentially. We played through the entirety of closed beta. And before they switched it now, which it's now into pre-order beta, which there's been a character wipe. So during the closed beta, when we got the most experience, classic, how was your experience with closed beta?
Closed beta was great. It was different times back then. Like you mentioned earlier, the devs really have been pumping with the changes and the updates and stuff like that. So my original combo was a warrior, and I had a mage in there, warrior shaman mage, and the mage has changed so much since then. They had the invocations, and they've buffed pets, and now you can upgrade spells and all that kind of stuff. And I still had pretty good time on the mage, but it was interesting. So it was a lot different than it is now. But I did have a lot of good time there. We didn't have instances, so it was kind of different, but it was fun. It was fun to get in there, do my first playthrough, and I think I got addicted almost immediately. And it was kind of, I wasn't expecting it, right? Because um, I truly think that this game I'm not necessarily the target audience for this game. I feel like, and I've held on to that. But even so, it is EverQuest. So how do you say that? Like as an EverQuest player, how do you say that you're not the target audience for this EverQuest game? but I just mean like this version of it and some of the things that come along with it. But I wanted to give it a shot because I like the devs and it is EverQuest after all. So I went ahead and did that, and I was hooked. I got hooked. I had a lot of fun. A lot of it was kind of some of the stuff I mentioned earlier with the theory crafting and figuring stuff out and all of that, trying different combos and stuff. But ended up being able to get to max level in that version of the beta. A couple different trios to max level, and got to try out some of the raids and stuff like that, and had a whole lot of fun. Um, did a lot, and then I went ahead and took a break, but I had a lot of fun there.
Awesome. Slayheim. So how was your experience when you played through the closed beta?
Yeah, so for me, it was a lot of fun. I jumped on. The first couple play sessions were just me trying to kind of figure out some of the systems, like experimenting with the UI, which is really sleek and beautiful, by the way. I really love how smooth and silky everything feels. And then once I got used to it, I wrote an XR, and so I had sort of a weird class combo that I didn't enjoy at first. I think I was like a monk and a mage, and I switched to a rogue berserker and a monk, kind of like a very unorthodox combo. A lot of people were complimenting that that's not the meta, which I didn't even look that up, but I was just having fun. And so as Classic said, a few of the systems weren't quite in yet, but I just really enjoyed being in striker stance and just all the abilities kind of firing on all cylinders. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the leveling aspect. I got a chance to go to Befallen, which I've never been to, and just kind of grind there. That's actually when I ran into you, Skeletane, in the wild, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
So
it
we were.
was.
We kind of just linked up. We were trying to figure everything out. We were grinding, grinding, grinding. Then we went to Guck, and as Classic said, instances weren't in yet. So I just feel like I got in when the getting was good and Gawk, and we were just grinding, and it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun kind of going through it, and yeah, I had a great time. I got a chance to do Plane of Hate, Plane of Fear, and just really enjoyed just getting AAs and just kind of living out that fantasy, of a super high-powered rogue, basically. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I didn't do everything that there is to do, but what I did, I really, really enjoyed.
Awesome. Well, I've had similar experiences that you guys had. I mean, there's not much more to say, but for me, I started out with a because I'm coming from my Quorum solo self-found necromancer. I thought it was appropriate to again start a dark elf necromancer as my primary class. I had to do it. So I started out that way. I'm like, well, shoot, what do I mix with a necro? And my thought process is this is where I really had fun with that theory crafting was I didn't look at whatever the meta was. I don't know what even if there was a meta at that point. It's like this is when we just started. But um I I was like, I want something that's a Swiss Army knife that can do absolutely everything. So I thought Necromancer is really powerful. It's already got an amazing kit in itself. And then I'm like, well, if I go with a paladin, then I can heal a little bit. I can buff. I can do soothe. So I have some, I can for single pulling things. And then I mixed the shaman in there for the slows, the haste, the massive buffing. I'm like, I think I can do almost everything and go absolutely anywhere in the game. Because my thought was initially because it's EQL, I've never played it. I wanted to experience everything I could totally solo, as I'm also coming off of a solo self-found experience from Quarm. I'm thinking in terms of what can I do alone. So I built that trio thinking this will get me absolutely anywhere in the world safely and pull and break almost any camp. And it was true, it did, and it was fantastic. The only downside was that DPS was not terribly high. But it was still I had so much fun doing it, and it maybe even be at least part of that trio I'm going to bring into launch and, maybe do something in there with that. Um, so I had a ton of fun with that, but then after that, after I got to 50 with that, Classic and I got to 50 really close together at the same time. And of course, during the leveling process, like Slay said, we ran into each other and we played a whole bunch together. We played for many hours together. It was a great time.
Yeah.
And Classic and I did so many videos together and stuff. It was a lot of fun. But at that point, I had switched over to a bard. I had rotated a bard in, and holy smokes, the bard is good. you can mix that bard in with any trio you want, and I had a lot of fun. And then of course everyone was like, "Oh, you're playing the meta." I'm like, "I don't know." It was a lot. I had fun. I did a bard monk warrior. I think was the first little. That was my second trio that I put in there. I had so much fun. And so there's that from the leveling and playing the trio experiences. But the other thing I was really my experience has been positive with the closed beta was the dev response to things have been really great. Like Classic said, the game's changed so much since we were playing, like the mage changes, and I played with the mage after the changes. I'm like, man, Classic, I wish you could have had the mage back when it was like this. It's so much better. Um,
Yeah.
and it's cool to see the systems, like the invocation system didn't exist when we started. And now we've got, and then suddenly they had invocations, and those were a huge amazing change to the game. So I don't know, my experience was really positive. I had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun, every time a patch dropped, it was always something exciting and new that was happening. And even now, I mean, I know we're not talking about the pre-order beta yet, but that was it's been they've been carrying that energy right into pre-order beta. So I've been pretty happy with it so far. So, any additional comments on that, guys?
It's pretty funny. Like pretty soon they'll be like you'll be picking a priest class and they'll be like, "Oh, you're playing the meta. You have a healer as part of your trio." But I think when you played the bard, that's really when we kind of unraveled because it was all unknown at the time.
Mhm.
This was early in the first beta, and we didn't. Like Slay said, it's not like we looked this stuff up. There was nowhere to look
Yeah.
it up. Kind of. If there was anything, it was based off of THJ. I said it, and so, when you played Bard and you started talking about like the symphonic aura, AA, and stuff like that, that's when we really started keying in on it and
Yeah.
trying to figure out. I remember that live stream, you were testing things out and we were starting to figure out like, wow, Bards are actually kind of nutty.
Yep. That was a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean,
fun.
you pretty much nailed it. It's really all about the fun, and we all seem to have a great time with it, and that's what it's all about. So yeah.
And I forgot, Classic, you highlighted that discovery process. I love that. I love that. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I think I figured it out. And then I would come back the next day and say, guys, I'm so wrong. I didn't realize how this worked. And then it's even better than I thought, and that was so much fun during that discovery process, trying to figure out how that whole.
Yeah.
But so let's transition from that because we're still talking about trios. Like I kind of talked about it a little bit, but let's still pop the next question up here. Um, What was or is your favorite trio? Or maybe it's a trio you haven't even played yet, or you only got to play a little bit of. It doesn't mean you have to play it to 50, but did you have a trio you enjoyed playing or even started to play and wish you could have played more of?
Yeah, so out of the out of the classes that I got 250, I think my favorite trio that I got to like kind of like play end game with and all of that would have been the shaman rogue bard. The bard is just, I mean, look, whether it's meta or not, or you hate it or you love it or whatever, regardless, it's pretty efficient and it's kind of just like set it and forget it with the symphonic aura. So it's cool to be able to be casting 5 spells at once and then not really have to worry about that, especially when you're dealing with 3 classes at the same time. So it's really cool to just mix into anything. Um, the shaman there to be like my priest class that can land slows because I think we learned that the bard's AoE slows don't land on like raid targets, right? So the shaman was there to provide like mallow and an actual single target slow and stuff like that. And then the rogue came in for some DPS, and I felt like this trio also worked when grouping with others as well. You can drop some heals, you can help with the slow, but then you still have some DPS there with the dots and with the rogue, and then you can stagger your bard songs with anybody else who might be playing a bard. So I think altogether that was like my favorite at max level, but I am tinkering around with a beast necro bard and I'm having a ton of fun there. I still got a lot to do there, but that might take over as my most fun trio or favorite as of right this moment.
Awesome. Okay, Slay, what do you think? What was your favorite trio?
Yeah, Yeah, so for me, the farthest I got with was my monk, rogue, and berserker. I might have misspoke earlier. I forgot what class I mentioned, but I was a berserker, which I never played, by the way. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed kind of making this glass cannon build, and just kind of all those abilities firing on all cylinders and just getting the massive damage with striker stance. So that was a lot of fun. But I think we mentioned theory crafting earlier, so currently, so I'm playing a paladin, cleric, and berserker. There's something about it. I really enjoy the stance, and there's some nice AA there as well. So I think like going into it, I think like for my favorite, I guess, quote unquote, would have to be pretty much the Holy Trinity. I mean, just incorporating a tank, a healer, and a DPS, because I just want to survive the world and get some powerful targets. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards going into it.
Awesome. So I think this is hard to answer, for sure. And I think after I know I started out with the Necro Paladin Shaman, and that one was a lot of fun for doing what my stated goal was. I want to go everywhere and see everything and dive deep into a dungeon and go into places I'd never seen with I feel like a trio that could do all things. But I did play that to 50 and I really did enjoy it. But once I got playing with the Bard, and the trio I ended on really enjoying because I was able to like take out raid targets solo, Nagy and Fox, Yale, Finney, all solo without problems, was the Bard Warrior Shaman. And kind of similar to what Classic was he was a Bard Rogue Shaman, right? Was that it? Um,
That's right.
yeah. And so kind of similar where you had the Bard, you have DPS or tankish kind of class in there, and then a healer class. And with that Bard Warrior Shaman, I was I had no problem soloing, Nagy up to like D2. I think D3 I started running some issues, but you could still kind of pull it off. And then it felt super good in groups. Like when we would group together and we would do like planar content or whatever, or we'd go Nagy D4. It felt really good with the Bard being in the mix to, obviously buff the whole group with all the different songs. And then if you had two bards in the group, like when Wreckit would join us, we would make sure our songs don't overlap and we'd line them up and we'd have like, 6 or 7 songs playing at the same time. It was really great. So I think I had the most fun with that one. It felt the most powerful. Let me put it that way. I felt very powerful with that trio. I know it was definitely not the best trio in the game. I'm sure there was better, but it was the one that I had a whole lot of fun with. Now, if I'm going to talk about from kind of what I'm excited about, maybe about a new trio. So, spoiler alert, I've got a new series coming out and I haven't put any videos out on this yet, but I did a randomizer where I just decided to randomly choose 3 classes. I've only done 2 so far and I don't know why, but I'm really enjoying it. It's so far it's a paladin druid and oh my word, I think Classic you turned me onto this. The divine invocation is out of freaking control. Like it's
That's really good.
2 wisdom classes. If you get 3 wisdom classes lined up there, you're healing for like almost 100% of the mana you spend, you get healed for. It's crazy. So I'm kind of excited about trying out a full wisdom like based wisdom caster, whatever they call it, wisdom classes together and with a divine invocation. I think it's going to be a little wild. So that's coming. We'll see. I don't know.
That does sound like a lot of fun, and that divine invocation was really fun. That's not even with my trio that I mentioned. That's not even what I was going in for. I was going in for something else, and
Yeah.
that one caught me by surprise, and I had a hard switch.
All right, let's do the next question here. How do you feel about the leveling experience? So we know that EQL is clearly a faster level experience than what we would traditionally play. Anyone who's played any OG EQ players know it's not it's definitely a faster experience. But I'd like to know what each of you felt about the experience playing it either solo or duo.
Yeah, it is fast. I will say that it is. It's very fast, but I think they did a Passover maybe a couple weeks before the pre-order beta. And then I think with the release of pre-order beta, they did an additional pass, I believe. At least that's the word on the streets. And so they have slowed it down a little bit. I think I've heard numbers thrown around. This isn't, don't quote me on this, but I've heard numbers of like 20, 25% ish slower. Even still, it's really fast. It gets a little slower when you're in like your mid 40s. And part of that is you really, in classic, you really only have like four choices. You've got like four choices to level in the mid to upper 40s, pushing to 50, four different like zones to do that in. But for me it's a little fast. But like I said earlier, I don't think I'm the exact target audience for this exact type of server, if you would, or this game. I'm not the primary audience. So for me, it's a little fast, but at the same time, it feels good. So you can jump in, you can get a ton done with a little bit of time, and that's nice. I just fear, for the longevity. That's all. But yeah.
Right on. Slay.
Yeah, so for me, I was flying through it. It was great, and then like mid 40s, it started to really, really slow down, and I was really milking Guck, and I got to the point, even though I've never done this dungeon before, and I was there, I was just like, man, I am so ready to go somewhere else and try something new. That's when I sort of gravitated over to the hole and had some adventures there with Razman. But yeah, so initially it starts out amazing. You're flying through it, and then it just really, 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 really slows down. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah.
Right on. For me, the leveling aspect was I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I think because of the speed of it, there's something addictive about it, about like
Yeah.
being able to get that next level quickly. Where you're just like, I got, you've heard those classic games where you're like, only one more turn. It's like, I was like, yeah, it's only one more level. Let's go. Especially early on, pre 40, you just blow through the levels. Um, Although I have to say, 1 to 10 felt kind of painful initially. I was like, "Man, if this is what it's like, this is slower than I thought it would be." But then once you add that third class in at 10 and you get like past 15, the game just snowballs. Like you just you're blowing stuff up, you're getting gear, you're accelerating. So that it's definitely fast for sure. If in comparison to any emulated servers you've played on, or if you're coming from, back in the day in the early 2000s, like it has got to be insanely fast. Because I just remember that being so slow, spending a week or two on a level, sometimes back then, especially in the 40s. It was brutal, but it feels pretty good. I'm kinda happy they slowed it down, to tell you the truth. I don't mind there being a quote unquote "nerf" to the experience because my thing is I wanna continue to enjoy the game, and I know some people may say, "Well, you're artificially extending the game by slowing it down," but for me, I want it to be that way. Like, I wanna slow it down a little bit so I can enjoy the game more. Um and so the other part that I enjoyed about the leveling aspect that was I had mentioned this before in my kind of overview of what I enjoy about the game. One of my favorite parts of the game was I wanted to be able to experience all the dungeons. I wanted to go deeper into a dungeon than I couldn't go. And I feel like I really got to do that with this leveling because and I'm going to go off something that isn't some people don't like and some people do. I was glad there was no corpse runs. um, because I like that I could fearlessly dive to the bottom of Guck or the bottom of some dungeon I've never been to and just say, I just want to see the bottom of this place. Let me just go. Like, I never explored all of Guck before for all the years I've played. I've only really spent most of my time on the dead side. Never really spent any time on the live side, but thanks to Classic, who's like, yo, you got to come over to the live side. We spent a lot of time over there, and then I got confident and felt had much more fun experiencing that dungeon myself, going through it entirely. So, like, that part of the leveling aspect, um, was really good for me and being able to experience content that I never was able to do before. So, any additional
One thing I
thoughts
want
on
to
that?
touch back on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to touch back on the XP nerf. I wonder if, part of their reasoning behind doing that, well, not only was it fast, but part of the reasoning maybe is because they're starting to redo dungeons, right? And with those dungeons comes early power with the gear. And so,
Right.
you know, so you're getting a lot of power and you're getting it early, and therefore you're killing faster. You can kill higher level stuff faster and all of
Yeah.
that. So honestly, it's probably a wash, to be honest. So I don't know, the people who are kind of upset about the XP nerf saying this is a dad's game and you're undatifying it. I don't know. I think it's pretty much a wash with the other kind of stuff that they added in.
Right. Right. Awesome. All right. Let's move on to the next question here. So another progression question. We just talked about kind of the leveling progression. How do you feel about the gear progression of the game currently in its current state?
Yeah, so it's a little bit wonky in the in the current state, I'll say, because well, let's go back before the current state. When we were in the closed beta, it was all original gear. I think we did have focus effects on some of the items, so that was kind of like out of era. But other than that, it was just all original gear and everything. But fast forwarding to the current state of gear, we do have some dungeons that have been redone, and then they've added custom gear into those dungeons. So instead of just going back and buffing existing items, they've added more items so that you can more fittedly be kitted out at an earlier level. But they're still working on it, right? We're still in beta. They're still working on it. They've only done a few dungeons, and there's quite a few dungeons in the game. So that makes it interesting because I guess it's making it a little lopsided because people are going to go to those dungeons and kind of leave the other ones in the dust a little bit for now. Obviously, there's a fix to this, and this is temporary, so it's nothing to be too mad about or anything. Um, but the new gear does blow classic gear out of the water. It's much better. It's almost on a lot of it's on par with like raid old school raid tier gear. Um, so yeah, it's really powerful, and currently in the current state, there's only a few places to get it.
All right, Slay, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I like it because it has this feeling from EverQuest where the item that you got mattered, you kind of remember where you got it from, what dungeon you got it from. So, I mean, since it's we'll get into the custom stuff later, but we can all kind of hit the ground running and go for our favorite camp. But you know, I think it's memorable. It's tied to the world. I guess I worry. I just don't want it to become like kind of inventory management or just like kind of spreadsheet from wherever you're going in the world. But it's cool because it gives you a reason to go to all these different dungeons, and they all kind of slightly overlap, But obviously like Befallen's a good one to go to, but then you could just spend like so much time in Befallen, you could change the difficulty and then farm, and then before you know it, I guess this kind of bleeds back into the leveling um question from earlier, but it's like before you know it, it's like, well, you're ready for Guck and you've out leveled, let's say like Unrest or whatever. But generally I like it. Yeah, it does start to get grindy once you level an item to +4, I think. But besides that, it's fun. It's fun. As Classic mentioned earlier, in the classic era, the gear didn't really have much to it, so I kind of just felt like I was filling my slots with AC gear at first, but it wasn't until I got to Guck where I could start kind of getting better and better items. That's sort of my experience with it so far.
Right on. So I got a lot of thoughts about um, the gear progression. I thought about this one a bunch. I think it's important to I always try to consider the newer player to the game. Like this is attracting new people, and I think about how does gear progression feel to the newer player who's been experiencing modern MMOs for so long, and now they're coming back to this, and they're going to have this modern mindset. So, like from a new player's perspective, like it's totally new to EQ, I think the system's going to feel totally clunky to them. You us old head EQ OG players, like we know where to go. We're like, yeah, I know where to go get this caster gear, and I know where to go get that melee piece, and I know where to get that haste belt. Like we kind of have this preset. We know where to go, but these newer players don't have a clue. The game doesn't really. There's not a lot of direction. Questing is not really a thing. Where you look at World of Warcraft, where everything's very almost on rails a little bit. They guide you from quest to quest, from gear to gear, and you get your upgrades naturally as you go. So you just don't even think about it. But in this, you really got to think about your gear progression and like what you're going to chase after, and have some knowledge about the game. So initially, like coming from that classic era, dropping it that way, that's what it feels like now. But I'm going to shift it a little bit, give them kind of devil's advocate, which is I think with the dungeon revamps, I believe that does solve some of that gear progression problem. Where if you're telling, you're broadcasting, like I think, the devs are broadcasting, hey, we've done a revamp on Blackburrow. Hey, we've done a revamp on Befallen. We've done a revamp on Najina. As they broadcast those things, it becomes common knowledge then the players to go check out those dungeons. So newer players will be told, oh yeah, you should go to Blackburrow and just level there. And they're naturally going to get all these nice little pieces of gear and upgrade, and it's going to feel very rewarding to live there and to spend time in the dungeon until you out level it. And not to mention, Slay, you had mentioned like, leveling up the gear. We haven't even talked about that, where, leveling up your gear is also rewarding because it feels good to merge that piece together and play it on a higher difficulty so that you can get, the better piece of gear. And that feels really rewarding. So, and this is something I had thought about. I had said even before we played the game, when the idea of EQL came out, I was talking to the boys and I was like, I think that living in a camp is going to be rewarding because you're constantly going to keep getting that piece to drop. And you just keep leveling up. So it feels good to stay in one place. Where the way I would shift that perspective is now you live in dungeons. You go to a dungeon, you make a solo instance, and you live there for like 10 levels. And in that time, you're getting a bunch of gear. And then you move to the next revamped dungeon. If you want to move dungeon to dungeon, you can now. I I think that, yeah, the natural system for a new player is clunky, but with the dungeon revamps, which I'm looking forward to, I think that's the way they do more of those. It's going to make that progression path a little smoother. I think. I don't know. That's my opinion about the gear progression. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? And I think once they, have done a pass through all of the classic dungeons, then for, like you were mentioning, newer players getting in, not knowing where to go, it's going to be pretty much you go anywhere. You go anywhere. It's kind of like World of Warcraft, where you go to any dungeon, every boss is going to drop something, right? And it might not drop something necessarily for you, but they're going to drop one or two items. I feel like they're kind of almost wowifying some of this to where like anything with a name on it, you're going to get. They probably have a pool of maybe two items, and then there's enough names now throughout these dungeons where you can pretty much go anywhere and you're going to find a couple pieces that are going to fit your character, especially when you're three different classes.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's a good point. That kind of the wowification. I hate to say it that way, but I think that's.
Yeah, me too.
But it's true though, right? Like there is. It is an old game that they're trying to do a little bit of modernization pass on it. And, some of the stuff kind of bleeds through that we've learned from, WoW did a lot of things right. It's no wonder it's the biggest MMO in the world. So there are some parts that they've done right, but, so a little bit coming over, I don't think is a terrible thing. But yeah,
Just a
it's all right.
completely random thought as well. For those of you in the chat or whatever who have played like Season of Mastery on World of Warcraft, or I'm sorry, Season of Discovery. I almost get Season of Discovery vibes from now. I didn't play, but I'm very much in the WoW community, like behind the scenes and in inner circles and stuff like that. But I get really like Season of Discovery vibes from this server, the EQL game. For any of those who've
Yeah.
played that or who can relate to that.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know if either of you played that at all.
I did. I played a little bit Season Discovery. I played that when they had maybe it was it Season Discovery, which was the one where they allowed the warlock to be a tank. I played that. Whatever.
Yeah, that one.
That
Yeah.
one, yeah. That was I thought that was kinda cool. They mixed it up a little bit. And you're right, I kinda get
Yeah.
that feel of, like, Classic Plus, they might call it, something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and classes started doing things outside of their I think mages had a healing spec, and so,
That's
you're
right.
you're not maybe you're not 3 classes, but you kind of feel like you're more than one, and
Right.
then there's a bunch of stuff to discover, and it's the same game, it's WoW, but things are different, so it almost
Mhm.
has that same vibe at least.
Right. Alright, let's, jump to the next question here. I felt that was good. Good conversation on that. I like that. Alright, endgame and raids. How do we feel about them? I mean, we know endgame and we know the endgame of classic, EverQuest. We've known it forever. It's a solved game, as Slayheim said, so we know all about it. But in light of EQL and how we approach it from the lens of EQL, how do we feel about the end game targets, the raid targets, the planar content? Curious what you think.
Sure. Still kind of solved depending on how you look at it. But if you look at it and you're trying to get some self achievements out of it, you're trying to solo these bosses, then it's not solved, and it's a new experience. The raids feel good in my opinion. The raids did feel good. In some cases, depending on the raid, such as like Plane of Hate, you don't necessarily have to clear all of the trash. They kind of, set you up to do some minis, maybe a handful of trash and the boss. And that feels really good, especially if you're going to try to do something on all 5 available difficulties at this time. You don't want to have to like clear an entire, this will take you days to do that. And that's just one raid out of all the raids. It's very time consuming. So that part of it feels really good as well. I do like that, like the skill level. How do you say this? The difficulty. The difficulty does increase, like if you're going to go in as a group raid, or if you're going to just try and solo it. Like just one, for instance, is like you're not going to get feared in a solo raid, whereas if you're in a group raid, they might fear you like normal. Um, there's going to be more stuff like with the moats to level up your gear and stuff like that. We haven't really talked about leveling up gear too much, so I will mention it here. The thing I'll say, what kind of feels bad about raids is that kind of the end game of EQL is to get gear and to level it up as high as you can as it gets stronger. And the hard part isn't getting the gear, right? You're going to be able to raid what you want when you want and almost as often as you want, almost. But the harder part is you need to get the same items again and again and again. And I think there is something about playing a standard EverQuest server like I raid on Project Quorum, and you might, and this might be a turnoff. This might be an L take for some or a turnoff to others. But you might go week to week. You only kill the raid boss once a week, and there's that item that's eluding you. There's that item that you want, and you don't see it every week. Maybe 3 weeks went by, and then finally it drops. But that's not your item. You still have to compete with other raiders, either spending DKP or you got to get lucky and win a roll, something like that. And when you get it, you got it. And you're just like, yeah, I got it. But in this one, it's very different. You'll most likely, I mean, you're doing the same raid up to 5 times a lockout, and which could be even more per week, however much you play, it depends. But you're going to get that item. You're going to see that item multiple times, and so I don't know. There's just something to it where maybe you don't get that exact same excitement out of getting that item, but the more part with EQL, the more difficult part is like Slay said earlier, is that you need to get it up to like maybe up to plus 10. And it becomes very grindy. For me, I'd say around 5 or 6 for your average item. Now, if we're talking raid drops, you know, it can get a little grindy a little earlier. But there is the moat system, and now they've added the NPC where you can up lesser moats. That's a huge that's a huge feature of the game that they added recently. That's going to help out a lot. I really like that feature. But even still, I feel like I don't know. And this is me again. I'm going to say this for like the third time. I might not be the exact target audience for this game, but for me, I get around 5 or 6, and then I'm pretty content. I don't know if I have it in me to farm the same pieces of gear because it gets very grindy, at least currently in the current state of the game. It gets very grindy beyond that. And so you'd be farming like the exact same items over and over and over. And I don't know how I feel about that. I do know how I feel about that. I'm not very positive on that. Um, Outside of that, the actual doing of the raids, like I started my long-winded comment with, that's very fun.
Right on.
Yeah. So for me, about the raids, I think it's really fun. It's really amazing to just be able to jump in these iconic sort of end game raids. You know, the Plane of Hate, the famous break-in, and just the danger of the zone. Another thing I want to add too is like the game isn't to where, okay, so even if we're all multi-classing and we're super overpowered, it's still not that easy. You still have to plan, you have to strategize. The semblance of like the essence of what it used to be, it still feels that way, you know? So like Plane of Hate is very dangerous. You're still like fighting a god and you're in the Plane of Hate fighting like planar monstrosities, you know, and you have to plan, but it's really fun. Like Classic said, you can like impose a challenge on yourself and do it solo. You know, is your class combo and gear that you have, is that going to hold up? You know, 1v1 on difficulty 4, or you know, do you want to just grab a couple friends and just do that? You know, so it's really really fun, and it's surprisingly still like you have to still think about it, you know, like for example when we went to Plane of Fear with Wreck-It, that was a lot of fun because I had my glass cannon build. He had a more tank build, so Interruck almost like two-shotted me a couple times. You know, you just have to be careful, and it's just so much fun to be able to jump in with friends. That's the beautiful thing. And then there's something about like I guess the dopamine rush of it too, like when you kill Khazak Thul and you just have like, you know, 5 or 6 items drop all at once and you're like, oh man, what did I get? You know, so that's a lot of fun. But then as Classic said, you know, whenever you're doing that the 100th time, if you want to get like your plus 10 item, maybe it starts to get a little grindy there, but I generally feel really good about it, you know, from the point of just accessibility, you know, because back in the day, it took so long to organize, you know, just it took so long to organize to like gain a foothold in these zones and actually get it done. You know, it's like, do we have 5 or 6 hours to do it? Okay, maybe, but we can just do it with a small group of friends. So that's how I feel about it.
Awesome. I love to hear that. So I share Slay, I kind of share your opinions on it for sure. You know, I was never a raider back in the day. I never got to do it. I never played the TLPs. Honestly, like the first time I've got to engage with any of the raid content was on Quorum with Classic in our guild. That was my first experience really actually raiding and what felt like a more classic experience of the game. So for me to hear it when then, you know, I've only been playing on Quorum for like a year and a half. And I'm doing raiding, you know, multiple times a week, getting to experience that whole thing. And for me, it was an absolute thrill to do kind of OG experience raiding. And then EQL gets announced. And I'm thinking about going, man, wait, hold on. Like, I'm gonna get to check out some of this like original classic stuff by myself. And to me, that the approachability of in the solo ability and the dad gamer ability of being like, hey, I can go do these guys by myself. This is going to be awesome to experience that. Um, that's what I was most excited about, and that's what I feel about the end game content is it's perfect for that kind of a thing. They've built it for that, right? And it is kind of a loot pinata, honestly. Even though you still have your lockouts, you have a weekly lockout, but you can have up to like 5. And they do now have a bonus loot system in place. So if you want to, you know, you go and kill it yourself on your solo instance and you kill Nagy, you get a big loot pinata of stuff and you're like, cool, I've got gear, but I want to go do it with my friends. They at least let you like the next day you can get one drop from Nagy and you know, you're not totally locked out anymore. It does definitely take away from the OG experience of like how slowly you had to acquire that gear, which made it extremely rewarding when you got it, right? So it does, like Classic was saying, it does kind of take the magic out of it a little bit and not make it feel as rewarding. But you still get that dopamine rush, like Slay said, when you get some cool pieces to drop. So I like it. I'm happy with it. I think endgame and raids are so far my experience on EQL, they were most fun done with a group. Like I enjoyed leveling solo. I enjoyed leveling duo a whole lot. But then I found that I think the doing the end game targets was way more fun with a team. That I found that way more rewarding than doing it solo. So there's a little bit of flip there. Um, like if anyone's watched our videos, we did right near the at absolute end of closed beta, we did a sky raid, and that was challenging. Like that even on D0, we had a
Yeah.
little bit of a rough time. It was fun. It was hilarious. We screwed up a bunch of times, but I thoroughly enjoyed that experience together. So yeah, yeah. Class is pointing himself because
Yeah.
somebody attacked the keymaster.
Yeah. I
Um,
screwed up.
and then forgot
Yeah.
to. Uh,
And so, can I just say too?
yeah,
Sorry to jump in
go
here.
ahead.
Like, it is indeed a solo focused game and like a dad camp focused thing. Absolutely, and that's so much fun because there's been so many times where I've literally had 10 minutes and I've been like, you know what? I have like 15 more percent to grind. I think I can just like grab this level real quick. And so that's absolutely amazing. But the most fun in this game is just with a buddy or two if you can manage it. It really, really makes it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I agree with both you guys on both sides. I love seeing the perspective. I feel Classic comes with the more traditional raid experience. He's had that long-term traditional raid experience. He's been doing raiding way longer than any of us, even Slay and High combined. So I love hearing his kind of traditional view on it. And we're coming from the like, oh, this is approachable for us and it's fun. So I love hearing both sides of that. Um, okay,
I do
let's
want to say,
go ahead.
I'm glad that you guys pointed out the group aspect because, this is where us getting together and talking about this is great because we're all kind of under the gun with a question and we go our own routes, but at the end of the day, we could all relate to everything that the three of us say, and so I'm glad that you guys pointed out the group aspect because that truly is the most fun. That's the most fun I had in the game. It wasn't the leveling up or like all of these different things, getting the AAs, getting strong, and that the most fun, the very top of the totem pole was getting together with the boys and doing some raids. Absolutely. So I'm glad that you pointed that out.
Yeah, and can I just say we're only focused on the reality here of the closed and pre-order beta, and but the game's in development. The difficulties aren't set. I don't want to get into like speculation territory or anything, but just in general, they might add more custom parts of it later. There might be higher difficulties to where it will actually be like really, really challenging and fun. Basically, like another thing I want to hammer home too is like it's it doesn't cheapen the experience of like let's say you solo Nagy, you know should you do that with a raid and it's like ultimately more rewarding and the more like truer versions of the game, I guess, quote unquote, maybe, yeah, but like this is still balanced incredibly well in my opinion. I just want to say.
Right on. Okay, let's hit that next question. All right, time to be honest, boys. What is your least favorite part of EQL? If you have one, it can be anything at all, any system, any part of the game. Love to hear it.
Hmm. That is a tough one. Um, well, I'll try to mention maybe just a couple small things. I'll reharp on the one that I just recently mentioned, which was kind of like the end game. The end game being grinding the gear that you already have for incremental upgrades. That is an end game, and it really depends on drop chances and where do you get it and what's the respawn rate and this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, the very end game is going to be doing raids, and so I already just went over that, and so that's something that I'm not super fond of. Like I said, I'll probably get it to around +5, +6, and then you kind of like once you level it from 5 to 6, and then you see that number of how many more you're going to need in order to put it to the next level, and you kind of just you're just like, you know what? I think I'm good. But or at least me. That's me. So that's something there. The speed of everything too. We mentioned this actually earlier as well, but the speed of the game, that's I just fear for the longevity based on the speed in which I can achieve things. And that's me. That's me with my the amount of time that I put into it and my play style. I'm sure there's people out there who are going to play less, and so the longevity will then therefore be longer. Um, but I guess I'll just keep it at that. Outside of that, had a lot of fun, having a lot of fun. Those are mainly the things that maybe I dislike.
That's beautiful. Yeah, for me, I think it's just that initial kind of like maybe like the onboarding and then the pacing. So like whenever you first start, I mean, and that's the beautiful thing about EQ. You're just kind of dropped into the world, but there's no clear like indication of like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Just it'd be cool if they added like something kind of like, hey, you should go to Befallen and maybe, kill a few of the mobs in there or something. But and then just the pacing because so even uh okay, so yeah, you mentioned level 1 to 10. It's a little bit rough, but then once you get your third class, it starts to like really, the world just opens up, the game just opens up, and you're just dreaming of like all these possibilities, and you're looking at your AA and just like living out this ultimate fantasy of like your tri-class combo. But then when you hit the mid 40s, it's just like really, really slows down, even though you're still killing like yellows and reds and stuff like that. I just feel like that the pacing could be a little bit better. So that's my personal, I guess, least favorite part of it would be the pacing if I had to really, really tell you.
All right, right on. I've got a few things. These are like the parts that I experienced of the game, and I was kind of like either I was like, I don't know about this. Either I didn't want to engage with it because I avoided them because I didn't like it. But I'm going to come back to what Classic talked about a little bit of the gear grinding, like the leveling up the gear. When I would hit like that +5, I was like, I'm good. Like I didn't really want to sit there and keep grinding out, like the same mob or the same drop or whatever it was to keep leveling up. I felt no desire to do that. That's just not my way to play. Even though I tend to be an efficient player, I sometimes can be min-maxy in some respects, but not that in that respect, that's too much for me. And so I'm gonna pair that with something else, which is what I see. Now, I wouldn't say I directly experienced this myself because I avoided it, which was I feel like if you've done everything, because EQL is a faster paced game, and as Slay said, the pacing of the game is quick, so you get to the end game fairly quickly. And if you've decided you're just gonna stick with one trio, um, you might run out of things to do. And the last thing for you to do, if you've like, I'm fully geared, I got all the stuff I want. Well, now what's left? And that's gonna be you're gonna be doing moat grind and you're gonna be an AA grind. And I don't really care for that. That's those systems being kind of like funneled into, I mean, given we're in the classic era, this is still also in beta. There could be a lot of things that change, but classic era doesn't have a huge wild end game. And when we get into Kunark and Velios later, which I hope that they do, things will open up a bit more for that. But for now, the moat and AA grind, I would say is probably my least favorite part of the game. I just am not interested in engaging with it. So I see that and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna when I hit 50, I'm kind of like, I want to go and play another trio now. Or I want to go play with the boys and I want to go do some raiding together with the team, but I don't feel like I want to solo anymore and go grind AAs by myself. It's not attractive to me. So that's probably my least favorite part is that grindy aspect of it. Any additional thoughts on that?
I too am a leveling Andy.
Right.
I
Uh,
do.
ab- Absolutely, yeah. It can wear on you. Yeah.
Yep. I love the leveling so much. I forgot to say that earlier on. All right. So we currently kind of covered what I would call like the generic topics or specific topics of our experiences so far with EQL closed and pre-order beta. And now kind of like we're gonna move a little bit into what I'm gonna say maybe more um recent, like recent things or current things things that are immediate, or we're going to talk, or that I say are going to happen very near in the near future, with like the release of the game coming in just a few weeks. So, one of the things I want to talk about is this. Let me switch the question here. Is so what do we think of these dungeon revamps? So we only have 3 currently in place. Some of us have experienced them and some of us haven't. Some of them have done all and not. That's fine. Just in general, like what do we think about these dungeon revamps? And are they good for the game, bad for the game, helpful? I would love to hear what you got to think about it.
Okay. Uh, Good for the game, yes. It's kind of like Classic Plus. They seem a bit strong, not gonna lie. But maybe once they're finished with everything, and who knows? We don't actually know yet. I don't think. Maybe they'll not only revamp the dungeons, but maybe they'll revamp the raids as well, right? And warriors aren't stuck with a helm that has intellect on it or whatever, intelligence. So maybe that'll smooth things out. But currently, for me, the gear does seem pretty strong. Like I said, some of the gear that you get, you might wear over a few pieces of the raid gear. It just depends on the raid gear, I suppose. But other than that, the gear is really good, and there's some really cool things that I like. Like for instance, Najina is the newest one, and I think it's pretty cool that taken over from Quorum, and then obviously way back in the day, the first patch of EverQuest back in '99 or what have you, or maybe it was beta. It doesn't matter. But the J boots are dropping off of Drelsna, so it's pretty cool to be able to go over there and get some J boots. In Blackborough, there's a clicky shrink that you can get, which is really cool. If you can get over there as like a troll or a barb or a ogre or something like that, you can go get a clicky shrink. So there's cool items around. So that's really nice. There's a low level haste item in Najina. It's like a budget FBSS. So that's pretty cool. Now I think that's cool, and you know what? Things like this, having like a shrink item over there, really good weapons in Befallen. There's actually some good weapons in Najina as well, but having these different things placed around in different dungeons, it actually gives you a reason to dungeon hop and not necessarily just sit in one dungeon and grind. I think a lot of EverQuest players kind of just grind it out, and that's something I'll give this game credit for that. I think this game gets a lot more people. Maybe us here, us sitting here, maybe we do a good job about going around and collecting gear on our journey up to 60 or 50 in this case. But I think maybe that there is like a subset of players who just grind it out and worry about the gear later because you're in groups and stuff. But I think this game's very good about getting you out, getting you into different spots, having you farm gear on your way up, and these 3 dungeons that they've redone really help with that. And you don't think as much about the grind when you're the XP grind when you're farming gear, and you get a little jolt of adrenaline every time something drops. So overall, feels good.
Yeah, I would 1,000% agree. I think it's a good thing. It's a fun, fresh kind of revitalization of classic EverQuest, and it's just a fun way to experience these classic dungeons. A lot of the old EverQuest vets, I'm sure, have like memorized some of these places like the back of their hand. They know exactly what's where and what drops where. So it's just like a fun way to get new gear because as we touched on earlier, classic EverQuest didn't really have much in the way of gear until later. So I personally really like this. I think this is a nice, fresh idea, and I'm really excited. I'm currently in Befallen, just kind of looking around and really enjoying it. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of touched on this before when I was talking about gear progression, but I think the dungeon revamps are good for that. I just think about the new player. They want to know, what do I do? Where do I go? Where's my quest guy with the exclamation over his head? Like this, that you don't get that, right? So having a target in mind of giving someone a goal to say, hey, well, one, everyone's goal is to level. We know that. That's a clear goal of EverQuest. But then it's like, I want to get some gear. So where do I go? What do I do? And I think the dungeon revamps give you a natural path to chase some gear progression path to say, okay, cool, I can start out in the really newbie dungeon, and then you work your way up. Now, given we only have 3, they have a lot more dungeons to go, and we can't speak to as what that is because we don't know what it's going to be. But I can't wait to see what they're going to do with all of them. They're going to hit Guck at some point, which is like that's kind of the holy grail of dungeons, right? Like, what are they going to do with that? You could either be good or bad to some people, but I'm looking forward to when they hit those. And one of the things we haven't really talked about, if someone who hasn't played the game yet, is listening this far into the pod, is with the dungeon revamps, they made it so that the names were always up. And that's something that's really new. Like, if you played any traditional EQ and you go to a camp, you know how big it is to like sit at a camp for hours waiting for that one guy that one named mob to spawn. And then you still got a low chance of it even dropping the item you want. So that pain goes away. That friction is taken away with these dungeon revamps where they're like, hey, the name that you want is always up. Um, and then you can always go and sit in that spot, or you can play it. You could do your own personal instance and go and sit at the camp yourself, or you can go with a group of friends and you all get to sit there and do it. Or as Classic and Rekka had pointed out to me in the past when we were playing in the closed beta, was you could go into one dungeon if you're still within loot range. You could have one person sitting at this name spawn and one person sitting at that name spawn, and you guys would still get the loot. It might be a cheesy way to do it, but you can. It's an interesting aspect. So I'm going to bring this all back, but I think the dungeon revamps are a positive thing to the game. They bring new life. They revitalize, like Slayheim said about the revitalizing something new. And they allow a clear path of gear progression, at least in my mind. Any additional thoughts on that, guys?
I'm just wondering what they're going to do with Guck. I mean, Guck already traditionally has some really good items.
Mhm.
Now they don't necessarily keep up with the new items, the new custom items, but obviously they'll make the named mobs spawn every time. And I don't know. I wouldn't be against a dungeon like that already has so many good items. I want to be they can add a few, sprinkle in a handful, but at the same time, maybe just boost the existing ones to put them on par with the already existing gear. Because something like Befallen, yeah, it had a couple items. It's got the range slot dagger for necros, so on and so forth, but it really didn't offer but like 2 3 items. So going through there and completely revamping it makes sense. But something like Guck, I do wonder if they'll just kind of sprinkle in some new stuff and then improve on the already plethora of gear that dropped there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next question here. Custom content. We're getting Nectropos, as they have announced, with the only thing we know of so far that they're bringing custom content into the game. Nectropos, I know nothing about. It is from EQ2. It's a castle from EQ2 that's apparently sits in the Nectalos forest. And from what we've seen so far of Nectropos, they did a live stream and talked about it. They kind of showed off some assets. They're actually creating a whole zone for this. So it's not just going to be a castle. It's going to be a full zone that kind of has like a lava storm feel to it. But then with this castle sitting up high on the mountains that you can go into, and there'll be new gear and there'll be new mobs, and most likely I assume they're being taken from EQ2. But what do you guys think about them adding custom content to EQL, and just thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And the fact that they're taking it from EQ2, I think is even cooler. Because I think a lot of us EQ1 players, I mean, let's be real, EQ1 was like that was the popular one. And then, EQ2, it had its people and all of that, but it fought with WoW. They came out at the same time. And I think a lot of us petered off after WoW came out. WoW came out, a bunch of people jumped ship to WoW. Some of us went and checked out EQ2, but we didn't. I think a lot of us, I'm not speaking in absolutes. I think a lot of us played for a month or whatever, and then we either went to WoW or we went back to EQ1 or kind of just moved on in general. So then later on in EQ2, I think there's a large amount of players who haven't experienced a lot of the lore and kind of stuff that they introduced into EQ2. And obviously, EQ2 has been going all this time as well. So it might be 5 years younger than EQ1, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still 23 years old or whatever, right? So there's a ton of stuff going on there. So for them to bring some stuff over, especially some fan favorites, I've heard like this is like a pretty cool zone from people who did experience it in EQ2 and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And you know what? I'm always down for some new Dark Elf stuff because they got some of the coolest zones to begin with. But I think that one of
Amen.
the coolest parts about it is that they're gonna make it like a city, So we already have some zones like that, like kinda like Charduk, they got a bank and stuff, so you can get your faction up with them, and then you could chill in there, and you could use the bank and stuff like that, and some of the giant stuff in Velius and the dwarfs and all that kind of stuff. So I like those zones that are like that, where you can either befriend them and use it like a big old city and hang out, or you can farm it, uh, you know, and pillage. But I think that's really cool, and I like the direction that they're going. I'm totally down for this kind of stuff. I think they can bring in more lore. I'm all about the lore, and so I'm really excited to see the zone and see the lore that I don't know because I didn't play EQ2 and stuff like that. And it's still in the EQ universe. Even if they made up some lore that isn't, if it's fully made up for EverQuest Legends, I'd still be down just to learn some of that. Um, and then just like imagine, what they could do, right? The devs, imagine them putting like a third Guk, like deepest Guk or something, right? So you got upper Guk, you got lower Guk, then you got deepest Guk, or imagine a third one, 3 zones deep. You got to go just to get to this place, and then it's like who knows, like whatever. Like it starts the lowest, like maybe level 35 or 40, and then it goes up to 50. Who knows? Maybe it comes out in Kunark and it goes all the way up to 60 or something. They could do anything. That would be so cool, and to throw in some lore in there and some name mobs and stuff. I really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think when Kunark does come out, it'll be like a totally new Kunark. But yeah, so I think the idea is amazing. It's beautiful. I'm very excited for it. I never played EverQuest 2. I've heard about this zone. It seems like it was like a haunted castle that was once like, this grand place, but now it's just like deteriorated and there's all these lore bits and hidden stuff. So it seems like a really cool zone that people really loved. So to bring that into like EverQuest, in and show the place in its heyday and all its grandeur and having just like a totally unique custom experience, then yeah, it'll bring uh EverQuest 2 people back, hopefully. And it's just like it honors EverQuest. EverQuest Legends can do this to honor EverQuest without being trapped by EverQuest necessarily. So it's just cool, like for the timeline, just from a lore perspective to bring something like this into the fold. So it just kind of makes me hopeful for future content of this kind. I think it's a great idea.
Right on. I agree with you guys. I think it's great that they're doing this. I can't see any negatives in adding custom content to the game because speaking about the lore part that Classic mentioned, he likes the lore. This EQL is like an alternate timeline of EverQuest, and it's like this split off. So to me, it's like you can almost do anything in that space. So I think it's really cool that they're reaching up to EQ2 and pulling in a zone to come back. I think that's really interesting. It's not I got to tell you, it's not something I expected them to do. I thought they would create like a totally new zone, which I think like Deepest Guk would be freaking sweet. But like I thought they'd make a totally new zone instead of like, yeah, we're gonna pull from one of the other EQ names and IPs. I think that's kind of sweet.
That's
So
curveball.
yeah, yeah. It was cool. So I'm really looking forward to what other things they do. And I think your idea, Classic, would be my favorite part of that, is where they add layers to stuff. Where it's just like could they make Befallen deeper? Could they make Blackborough bigger? I think that would be really cool, where you take some of these classic dungeons and make them like a classic plus dungeon, not just revamping putting like they do now, where they're doing gear, but actually adding a whole other part that has, some additional lore to it. Or what if, there's no dungeon per se, maybe like for certain races don't even have dungeons. It'd be cool if they almost did like racial dungeons where you had dungeons appearing in places that didn't really traditionally get them. If you think of like Greater Fedor and Fedor, there's so many good dungeons over in Fedor that everybody loves to hit. You got Crushbone, Mistmore, Unrest. Like everybody wants to go over and hit those. And then there's some places that are just nothing. Like we have one dungeon in the Chronos of Splitpaw. It's like, could we do more things? Could there be, I don't know, other dungeons in different places? Maybe make Kithakor something really cool because nobody likes Kithakor. So, um,
Yeah, let's get a dungeon full of halflings so we could just go there and slay them all day.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
that would be, I. The whole idea. You could tell I'm kind of excited. The whole idea of custom content is really neat. So I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by the additional things they add. But
I want to point something out too is that they're pulling this zone from EQ2 Nectropos. They're pulling it from EQ2, but EQ2 takes place 500 years in the future. So it's not going to be like a carbon copy. It's going to be like they are going to have to introduce some lore to us that maybe we know, maybe we don't, maybe we haven't seen, but we've heard or read. But it should be the zone 500 years, previous to what people know.
right. So that'll be interesting how they figure that out. Like how are they going to make that mesh with everything? But I don't know. I'm excited about it. All right, let's go to the next one. What concerns do you guys have about EQL heading into release? Like, this to me, this is kind of coming back to like least favorite parts of EQL, but also more about like maybe a wish list. And I want to say wish list, but it's like maybe there's some things that you're like, oh, I don't see this in the game, and I hope that this comes into the game. I think it's missing this, or it could use this, or something like that. So, what are the concerns you might have for it heading into release? And we got 20 days away.
Yeah, I don't know what it could be missing out, ah, I don't know about that. And I'm also not one to kind of tell developers how to a lot of people like to tell developers what to do. I'm not one of those people. So sometimes this isn't really going rattling around in my brain. But I'm going to be critical here, and obviously this is just like my opinion, man. But I do want to, just point out it's the content thing, the speed of the game. It's like we need a graph where like the speed of the game versus like the content. Um, and then you're right, it comes out in 20 days. So I think it's pretty obvious, right, that they're not going to be able to revamp all the dungeons and stuff within 20 days. They're working on it. They're working fast, but the release date, I think, if they announced the game and said the release date was like next year, I don't think anybody would blink an eye at that or bat an eye at that. But I think they announced that it was coming out a lot sooner than we would have imagined or guessed. But there's a lot of work to do, and they'll work on it. But some of that at this point, when they release, it's going to be kind of like uh, sideways progression, horizontal progression. So the game releases, you get to 50. Yeah, you're going to have other trios that you need to level up and stuff too. But they'll be adding some stuff in that will be for your alts or whatever. Obviously, Kunark is on the horizon. We have heard of that, but that's really my only thing. Yeah, just I'm gonna leave it at that. I think that's really only thing. There is stuff to do, right? If anybody's watched Skeletane's unlock guides for the races, there's gonna be people, sometimes like me, who like to be completionists. So that'll give you content to do, unlock classes with the primary classes, unlock races, and that kind of stuff. So there is going to be stuff to do, but for those people who just want to get a couple of trios that they're favorable with and then just push kind of like vertically, those people might run out of some stuff. So that's just a concern. Um, I'll leave it at that. That's just a concern.
Yeah, beautiful. This is just very broad, but for me, the typical stuff is just like your regular like MMO launches, like how stable are the servers gonna be? Is everything gonna be smooth? Like the load, are we gonna be able to just do instancing off the bat and just kind of hit the ground running? Because I feel like a lot of people are gonna jump onto this, and those aren't necessarily people that like consume, YouTube content or like watch streams and stuff. I think a lot of people are generally coming out of the woodwork to get in on this. So I guess like onboarding those people, and how well they're going to do with the systems and whatnot, like that kind of a thing, from a community sentiment, because first impressions are important. And so those are my concerns, and then we can get into it later, but also just how disciplined the monetization stuff is going to be, like the longevity of the game, like the pacing of the classic experience before we get into Kunark. Those are kind of my concerns.
Right on. Well, I definitely share a lot of the concerns you guys do already, so I'm not going to repeat those. One of them I'm going to bounce off Slayheim is the systems with for new players. So in my comments in my videos from I've been doing a lot of EQL videos for the past couple months, and one of the kind of reoccurring comments I'm hearing is, "Hey, I haven't played EverQuest in 20 years. I'm so excited to come back and play." These are people that haven't played the TLPs. They
Yeah.
quit at some point in the mid 2000s, either to play WoW or whatever it was, and they're like coming back to this thing. So it's like a whole new game to them, right? They don't remember everything. It's totally different. So that you'll kind of hear a common thread in the things that I've been saying over the course of this pod, which is I think about the new players, and I think one of my concerns, heading into releases, there are so many systems in EQL that are new or brand new or just even existing systems that came over from TLPs that are just not fully explained. They just kinda drop you in, you kinda gotta go figure it out, which, I mean, hey, that's EverQuest, but this game's supposed to be more approachable. It's kinda being sold as a, "Hey, this is more approachable, this is more," that kind of thing, and I think having not having fully explained all the systems is gonna be a little difficult for some of the returning and newer EQ players. So there's that. Um, so one of the ones that you had mentioned, I think classic was, not all the dungeons are revamped. And that would be something I would be cool, would be nice to have, but they're not going to have that. Would have been awesome to have that. What my thought was having at least enough dungeons to really feel like there was a 1 to 50 leveling path where it was like, you could go from 1 to 50 through a full set of dungeon revamps along the way, right? I think that would be nice to have that, on release at least, even if it's just like a few dungeons, but at least there's a path. Um, and then kind of like my last two things we kind of mixed together a little bit, which is crafting and quest rewards. I'd like to see those get a boost because right now you're doing crafting, you're doing quest rewards. They're coming out at D0. Like the stuff that you get is sorry, not D0, but level 0, right? And I think if you're going to spend the time to do questing in particular, let's say the Soul Row quest where you're doing the Lambent, you're doing the Armor of Row for like the Paladin, any of those, I think those should be like +3, +4 coming out of the gate. And just so that, because when you get them, it's like, cool, I got it. But man, it's worse than everything else I've found so far. Um, and you kind of want to wear it, I mean, I do know that there's going to be a, quote unquote, like a transmog armor customization system. So sure, you can wear the new armor and then, yeah, I can put the lambent over top of it. But I think it would be cool if they gave a boost to crafting and quest rewards. And so I think those handful of things would be my concerns going into release. I have a few more, but they're not really that, critical. Those ones feel kind of important to me.
I think you hit something there that I didn't really pay attention to, but yeah, so obviously they're taking an approach of doing the early dungeons and maybe, who knows, maybe Crush Bone is next. They're kind of keeping the level of dungeons so far at least have been like on the lower end. Obviously Crushbone didn't get didn't get a redo, and that's pretty low. But I think you're right. It would have been nice if they went the approach of doing them by level chunks, like a low one, a low mid, a mid, a higher mid, and then like one of those last 4 zones that you can go to. But those are all kind of raid zones though, so maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I think a path maybe would have been the play. Again, I just was talking about how I don't want to tell them what to do at them as them being the devs, but I can feel that. I agree with you on that for sure. That would have been a nice approach. But I get this too, right? So maybe the idea here is where do you have the most congestion? The most congestion is typically in the newbie zones, and then as people level up, they spread out. So maybe that's the idea: is get a bunch of these low ones so that not everybody's in Befallen, not everybody's stuck in Najina or trying to. At the same time, we have instances now. So what am I talking about? Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Right on. Yeah, I think there's quite a few things that we're concerned about, but at the same time, I do trust the devs. They've been doing a lot of good work, and clearly through the pace of the pace that they're putting out, it's been wild. Um, and they're making changes so quickly. Big patches are dropping with huge changes, which is really really great. So I do trust the work that they're going to do. And yeah, so good conversation on that. So let's go to the next one. Time for the hot button issue, guys. Oh no. Monetization. So if you've been sleeping under a rock, a lot this has been a hot topic this week in particular. But there's a lot of assumptions, a lot of rumors, a lot of ideas and thoughts as to what is going to happen with monetization. And I'd love to hear initially, what do you guys think about this, conversation about monetization and microtransactions in EQL?
Yeah, this is one. This might be my longest winded answer. I don't know. We'll see what I come up with here. It is a hot button issue, and I probably have hot takes, such as I don't really care too much about it. I know, it's the fun thing to do right now is to be upset about it and everything. But honestly, the game has a lot of soloing and just hang out with your buds type vibe to it. I don't think there's too much pugging going on. Too much. You got personal instances. You can solo everything, maybe except Sky. I don't know. Can you solo Sky? I couldn't, but you basically can solo everything. And then if you want to group, usually you're doing it with a couple of people that you do know. I'm obviously there's people out there who maybe don't know anybody who plays EverQuest. It's an old game, right? So then you're trying to make friends and all that stuff. But you might join a guild of like-minded people, and you'll just get in there with a couple of buds. So, do you really? I don't know. Monetization when you're just kind of playing like this is so hard to say. It is really hard to say because I get it. Like, who wants to monetize a single player game? But at the same time, it's not a single player game. But at the same time, I feel like it's this really fine thread that's that's going through the whole of the needle where you're kind of stuck in the middle and it doesn't really affect me. I understand in normal MMOs, like in a general MMO, where you're seeing like tons of people running around and there's a bunch of community things and you're pugging stuff and there's giant 40-man raids and stuff like that. That typically you don't want like pay to win features and stuff like that. I don't really like pay to win, but I don't really see any of this as being pay to win. I'll say it now, try to be fully transparent. Breaking news, right? We got some of the monetization stuff that came up just recently, and the only thing I can see people getting caught up on is the bonus to the AA experience. I'll say that everything else is very cosmetic. Everything else is very um, quality of life or a luxury. You know, um, I want to preface all of this. This is long winded, I tell you. I want to preface this by saying one more time that for me, this isn't like my number one game. I'm not going into this game like this is the game I'm going to spend all of my free time playing. This is a side piece for me. I'm married to Quorum, right? And this is one of my side pieces. So I'm going to spend a lot of time on Quorum and some other games. And this is going to be a game that I go to, and I do play a lot, but I go to maybe in bursts or something like that. So for somebody, so I'm just going to speak from my opinion, with you knowing that, coming from that. Um, I don't feel like having 3 loadouts now. Having 3 loadouts is that big of a detriment. I don't feel like I need these crazy amounts of storage. You still have a bank that has you could fit what 16 bags or something in. You still have a lot of storage. All it really is the convenience of being able to do things more quickly. You could still edit your loadouts, so on and so forth. So I think things are getting blown out of proportion. I'll say it, I'll be the guy. I think there's people on YouTube who are really just chasing views and stuff, and they just want to burn everything down, making a mountain out of a molehill, honestly. I understand people who don't like monetization or pay to win and that kind of stuff. I fall into that category. But I think for this game and for how I'm going to play this game, I don't think it's that big of a deal. They keep saying that this game is for dad gamers, and it's supposed to be fast. It's supposed to be like fast progress and all these different things. And I think dad gamers, people who are busy with their family, busy with their jobs, those are actually like the guys who are willing to spend money on a game. So if the game is for those guys, those are the guys who are going to be okay with spending some money on their game, because they're okay with taking some shortcuts, if you want to call it that. It's not really a shortcut, it's convenience. But and I know this because I've grown up with these people. I still am friends with the people I grew up playing EverQuest with back in the day. We discovered EverQuest together, and we continue to play it up until now. And some of those people that I've grown up with have turned into this guy. They're busy, they have kids, they have a job, and they're more than happy to pay for some shortcuts. Nothing too crazy. Now I understand people, the uproar of creating a problem, selling a solution, and that kind of stuff. But for how I'm personally coming at the game, it's not that big of a problem because it's just a convenience. So how big can it be if it's just a little less convenient? That's not a big problem, in my humble opinion. But with all that said, I hope they stick to their word and they don't they don't end up doing like a chrono thing or a power thing. And it really seems like they aren't going to do that. So that's really good, because I'm not a fan of chrono, a tradable currency. Now they have this currency, but it's not tradable. So I think that's a big point, and a big thing to point out. But that was all over the place, and it was long winded. But this is a hot topic. And one other thing I do want to point out as well, while we're on the topic, is that some of these people on YouTube who seem to just want to burn everything down, they make crazy claims like, "Oh, there's over 600 combinations in this game," which is true. But are you really going to be playing 500? I'm sorry. Are you really going to be playing over 500 combinations or whatever? And then they'll make exaggerations like, there's 16 classes, and each class can wear like over 10 pieces of gear each. So, that's like 160 pieces of gear. Yes, but you're playing 3 at a time. So you're not wearing 30 pieces of gear. You're still wearing the 10 plus pieces of gear, but that's 3 characters, right? And then I do want to point out, yes, in some raids there are class specific gear, warrior only, cleric only, whatever, but generally plate is plate, mail is mail, and a lot of things can apply to multiple classes. So I think people are doing a disservice and kind of fear mongering, and just trying to, what's funny is that I feel like people are more than happy to monetize their videos, monetize you viewers with their videos complaining about EQL monetizing you. So they're monetizing you, but also complaining about EQL monetizing you. And I just think that's kind of like a funny point, It's, I don't know. I don't know what to call that. There's a word for it, but I find that a little bit funny. I don't want to like go off the rails on this or anything like that, but I think I summed it up there pretty well. I think they're exaggerating how much you actually need, and this is coming from somebody who played a bunch in both betas still, and I'm still playing. But self-admittedly, I'm not going to be the guy who's playing like 10 different trios. I'm going to have a few favorites, and I'm more than willing, you know, to sacrifice the convenience to spend like a little more time, editing my loadout or something. I'll leave it at that. That was really long.
Yeah, no, that was very beautiful. It's certainly a dirty game, I suppose. Man, what more can I
I'm a
say?
dirty shill.
You pretty much nailed it. I think, I have some strong thoughts as well, and it's just not it's the way that games are nowadays, It's not like EverQuest Legends for the first time in history came up with this concept. They announced it right off the bat that it would happen, and actually, the game it very quickly came out. There's been rapid development and changes behind the scenes. I think the team's done a great job. They were very upfront in the beginning when they said that there would be monetization, and how much of that is controlled by Daybreak specifically. Maybe they just hadn't figured it all out yet. But the fact of the matter it is, there's a cash shop, and so Classic pretty much nailed it. But it's there. You can pay for convenience, or you can just not pay. I think the biggest red flag, if you want to call it that, it would be the AA potion, I suppose. That kind of leans more into like pay to win or whatever. If you just want to like rush through AA, but you don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy it. Maybe eventually, and this is just speculating here, but maybe, if you kill Nagafen, maybe you get 100 iridium or something, or you get a chance to get this currency as you play the game, But it's there. You don't have to buy it. Yeah. So I definitely don't think it's as bad as people made it out to be. Um,
Right on.
and I mean, honestly, yeah, 50 slot bags is looking pretty good.
I'll bring it up on
I,
screen, guys. I apologize. I meant to do that. Let
I
me.
I might treat myself a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I might treat myself a little bit.
We'll put it up on screen here. We've been talking about it. We haven't had it up here, but so you guys can look that over. I'll start talking while we have this up on screen. It kind of shows the different things that are in the shop. Which, by the way, like Classic said, breaking news. This just came out today, so this is brand new to us. There's been a lot of rumors, a lot of things thrown around about what's going to happen, how it's going to be. They finally came out and said, "Here's some of it." It's definitely not all of it, because they said items may be added or removed from the in-game shop. You can see that at the bottom of the screen there. Um, but let me give you my kind of opinion on the monetization whole thing. I've also got a very long answer, and my answers tend to be, you may notice that they tend to be either leaning towards the new player. I always consider the new player or the returning player. But also, I'm trying to take a logical approach to this. Like, what can I see both sides of this argument if possible, and kind of think it through. So, like, I think this is, again, this is speculation. This is opinion based on, my sample set of people who have come to my videos and made comments on my EQL videos, excited for the game, seeing their returning players, or some said, I've never played this game, but it looks fun, or I've only ever played this MMO, I've never played EQ. And they're hyped and excited, come and check it out. So I think a lot of these players coming are either they're OG players from 20 years ago. They've got this nostalgia for the OG experience. Click, you can tell that they're trying to lean into that, right? Game John, they're trying to lean into the OG game experience of Classic EverQuest, or Classic Plus, as we've been kind of saying along the way here. And their memory from 20 years ago is of a game that they would go to the store and buy a box, and they'd pay a sub, and that's all they did. That was it. There was no monetization. Never, it didn't exist then, during the heyday of EverQuest. So, their last memory of having to pay for a sub for that kind of a game, now, given they're probably coming from other games, but of their original EQ experience, was there's no monetization. It's the $10, a month. That's all I paid for. Um, and so, them coming back going, hey, everything's nostalgic except this one part. This part doesn't feel nostalgic. So I can try to understand maybe a position that some of them might have to say, I don't like how this feels because it's not the OG experience. It's not the OG feel that I remember back in the day. But unfortunately, Slayheim, you talked about the way of the gaming industry is going. I did a little research just to see, like, in the gaming industry. I Googled, asked Chat GPT, like, if you ask it about the gaming industry and monetization, it is incredibly profitable for the gaming industry. And any large gaming company or AAA gaming studio right now, they've done the research, they've seen the effects, and they know that it's wildly profitable. So why I'm saying that is if you're tying yourself to a studio like Game John and Daybreak, they're a bigger game company. They're big enough. They control these large IPs and they already have a history of it in their existing games. They know how incredibly profitable this is. And it's like for them, it's business 101. This is a standard business decision to do this. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's respecting the player because they have a bottom line that they're trying to reach. So I think asking the question about like, "Oh, can you guys get rid of this?" I've seen a lot of comments from today after they announced this. People are very, it's a very polarizing issue. People are on both sides. They're like, "We should get rid of it. You should make a version of the game that doesn't have MTX. You should have." It's like, listen, the logical answer is the gaming industry is not abandoning monetization anytime soon. The answer is a hard no. And when Game John tied themselves with Daybreak to do this, which I think is a wonderful thing, there was always that's gonna happen. It's like there was no way around it, which we know. So, like you said, they've been very clear about the monetization thing, and they said they were gonna do that. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
I
I'm
can
sorry, can I just
yeah,
add, I think
go ahead.
it's beautiful too. I'm sorry to interrupt you that, this is like an officially sanctioned server. So you can play knowing that, your character isn't going to be nuked and all your progress is going to be lost forever. And if this is successful, maybe this will greenlight secrets and the people on the team that, maybe we can do custom content like we're wanting to do. Maybe we can just like really expand it and give you that classic plus experience if this is successful. And things change. Maybe sure with like a crazy public outcry, they could maybe make adjustments to this. Like none of this is final, but it's just the way that things are with Daybreak and these like bigger studios that control these IPs, and it's just unfortunate. I don't want the cash shop just like the next guy, but it's here and you don't have to buy anything. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Um, it's you don't have to engage with it. And that's kind of my position is like I'm telling you my thoughts of me looking trying to step back and look at the whole landscape. Like how does this feel to the new player? How does it look to a returning player who has an original OG nostalgic experience? And what is the gaming industry actually doing? There's no way we can get around it, unfortunately. And yes, we can put up a fit and we can fight and we can yell and they may adjust it like you said, Slayheim. But at the bottom of this page, we can see it says items may be added or removed from the in-game shop. So maybe they will. Maybe everybody has a fit about the AA potion, they end up removing it. It's a possibility. We don't know. So I don't think it's fair for us to, you know, like it was prior to today, prior to today with this news coming out, I didn't think it was fair for anyone to be casting judgment or making assumptions on something that hasn't been talked about yet. And it's always been my stance that, I was asking comments, "What do you think about monetization?" I'm like, "Listen, I'm not going to say anything until we've got the official word." Which here it is. We got it. We're talking about it. Um, so, listen, I'm going to maybe make this my final word on this. I mean, I think there's more to unpack, and there could be more to argue about for a long time on this. But my final word on this is, I don't believe, and I could be wrong here, but I don't believe that the majority of the players are what we would call like power players. They don't need all the slots. They don't need all the bags. They don't need all the loadouts. I think the majority of the players are going to have a great time with the base game without ever spending a cent, and they're not even going to miss it. They're going to be the guy who has one trio that they log on and play with their significant other or their friends or their friend or whoever it is, and they're going to play a couple hours a week, a few hours a week, an hour a night, and they're never even gonna engage with the shop at all. Like, that's what I feel is, like, there's all this talk, but it's like, I think people making the most noise are, those who are, maybe more of the power players who are like, "Whoa, hey, I'm trying to do everything." And now you've curtailed what was happening, or what I saw in closed beta. Now it's different, and it looks like you guys have nerfed and taken away these things, and now you're charging us for them. I think that's you're hearing more of the players who are gonna be much, much more active, which to me, I don't believe is the majority. Again, I could be wrong. That's the feeling I get towards this, and I think that'll be the last thing I'll say towards the monetization thing.
I got some stuff to add.
Please, please.
Wasn't long-winded enough. Along those lines of the power gamers, what's funny is like so something that we haven't mentioned is that they also announced that there are going to be ways for you to get this stuff through achievements and stuff like that. And so for those power gamers who are interested in getting every class to 50, into unlocking, all of this other stuff, classes, races, all this kind of stuff, you're going to be getting achievements, and they have um, shown some of the stuff that you can get through achievements. So you will get some help there. It's not like you're not, that you're stuck with exactly what it is now. So if you are a power gamer, you are getting some sort of break with some of the stuff you do get through the achievements. And I also believe, like, who are maybe some of the people who are upset could be coming from EMUs, right? Like myself, where I'm used to not paying for anything, right? I play on a free server like Quorum. Everything's cool, that kind of stuff. And you can see it there, chat on the screen there. But I'm used to not paying for stuff. So, they are going to get some people who are coming from EMUs who are used to not paying anything at all, and now they're coming here and they're being asked to pay some stuff. But I will tell you this: I think a big part of the because right, so this server was kind of in response to THJ, right? Who were the most people playing THJ? From what I know, most people that were playing THJ, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. They were coming from TLPs and from live EverQuest. That's why Daybreak got upset, is because you're taking our player base because you're making a server that people are really enjoying, right? And so that was the lawsuit, right? Is you're hurting our business, you're taking our players. So if those players came from TLPs and live, then when they come out with EQL, it was with the intention to win those players back who were ex TLP players and live, or current TLP players and live. What are TLP players and live players already used to? Are microtransactions. So maybe I don't like them, maybe you don't like them, maybe these people who are loud about it don't like them, but their main target audience, these people who left TLPs and live to go to THJ, who are now supposed to go to EQL, those guys have already been dealing with this for like a long time. They sell bags, they sell every potion you can think of, regen, Spirit of Wolf, you name it. They sell all these different potions. They sell group potions. They sell different ranks of XP potions. They sell XP potions. They sell chronos. They sell all this kind of stuff. So a lot of these players who are coming from that over to this is quite tame, I would have to say. They sell 50 slot, 100% weight reduction bags. The bag on this one is 50 slots, but it weighs 100 pounds. It's for your bank. But they do have some weight reduction bags. But anyways, so that is one thing I would like to add, is I think that's their thought plan, is they think they lost the players to THJ. Now they're trying to get them back. So they already came from a place that has microtransactions that are, if you want to call it, that are more egregious than what they see here. Having no chrono is already something people have been begging for a TLP to come out that doesn't have a chrono on it. That's already something that gets begged for each and every year. Well, this is, kind of that. You don't get the chrono, but it's not good enough, apparently.
Right. Great conversation. Love this. It's a hot button issue, but I'm glad we're talking about it. I think it's important that we do talk about it because I get questions about it in my comments all the time. So I appreciate that we can have some hot takes on this. Any more comments on the monetization?
I don't think so.
I
I
don't think
think
so.
we pretty much nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's transition away from this here. And we will go to next question here, which I think this is going to be one of our last questions, if not the last question. Is EQL going to be the biggest version of EQ that Daybreak has put out? Or is this going to be bigger than TLPs? Or is this going to be just a smudge on the mark of EverQuest? What's it going to be?
I love that this question followed the last one. That was perfect transition. Um, segue. That's what it is. Yeah, because I do. I don't even think this is a hot take. I'm gonna say it's a hot take. I don't know who I'm saying it to, but I honestly don't think it's a hot take. You guys probably agree with me, but in fact, I think maybe Slay. I'm spoiler alert. I think I may have heard you say this as well, but um, I think EQL. Okay, so over the course of this podcast, I've admitted that this isn't the. I'm not even the target audience for this exact game. But with that being said, so I'm coming from the mindset where this maybe isn't for me. I'm going to play it, but maybe it isn't for me 100%. But I can still stand outside and look in, and I can still tell that this is going to be so popular. It's going to be insanely popular. I only want to speak though, because I do try to be fair. I do try to be critical, and I do try to be true to myself and my actual thoughts and beliefs. And I only want to speak of like the first like 2 to 3 months because I don't know what's going to happen after that. Because what I've already said in two previous questions is my concern is the longevity, is how fast they can pump out content, stuff like that. So with that in mind, I only want to speak to like the first 2 or 3 months because people can burn through stuff pretty quickly. But for the first month, 1 through 3 months that this game comes out, I think it'll have more player base, like a bigger player base than like the big EMUs, the TLPs, and the live servers put together. Personally, like we're talking about EverQuest here, so all of those put together isn't really like this grand number. But I think this will have more than all three of those other versions of EverQuest put together for the first 3 months. I really do.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's new, it's fresh, it's sexy. It's going to be amazing. I think it'll be huge. Absolutely. It'll be the biggest in terms of population, everything. Yeah, absolutely. And just the possibility of what could be, the future content, the future expansions. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have any experience with TLPs, but from what I've heard, they seem like they just come and go. They die very quickly. Everybody wants to get that initial, I guess, feeling of what it's like to start over, but then it just very quickly gets old because we've been through there before, you know? And so this is a totally fresh, new, and sexy version of EverQuest that I think people are going to love and enjoy. So, yeah, absolutely.
Right on. Well, I share most of your opinions again, but I'm going to come with Slay with you. I'm going to agree that I personally don't have any experience with TLPs. I haven't played on any EverQuest, live server since 2004 until now. With EQL, I've been playing emulated servers. Prior to that, it was P99 in 2009, and then obviously in Aquarm in the last couple of years. So I've only ever been emulated. So for me, I have no experience with any of the live service stuff, anything that they've been doing at all. I only just hear it through, like, see a video, watch it, hear about what someone says about it. So my opinion's coming kind of from maybe that emulated perspective, but in what I'm looking at, and I would say I think it is going to be probably the biggest version of EQ right now. One, it's a new hot thing, that's clear, and it's going to take a lot of players away from those TLPs for a period of time. Now, given the pace of the game, it may not be as long as maybe a TLP would be, um, because a TLP has a very expected path. Everybody knows where it starts, and they're very clear about how it begins and how it's going to end. We're going to go through X many expansions, or we're going to go through whatever. Everybody kind of knows where it's going to go, and everyone is waiting for that next expansion to open up. With this, we don't know. We have no idea what EQL is going to do. And I think that unknown adds to it, but it could also be a negative too, because you don't have a clearly defined path. We don't know what expansion they're going to go to. We know Kunark is coming. We would assume Velios would be after, but are they going to go any further than that? We don't know. Um, and that provides, I think, maybe a pro and a con. So there's so much unknown. It's hard. It's for to me. It's hard to say how it'll be entirely received by the TLP crowd long term. Short term, absolutely, it's going to pull them away from it. Um, Now, from an emulated player perspective, I think that's a lit less. I think it's more like a 50-50 on your emulated players. I think because the thing about emulated servers are, if you're playing on an emulated server like Project 99, like Project Quorum, you're going there for that era accurate experience of EverQuest, that OG experience. You kind of know what you want, and it provides a specific type of experience, that closer to classic experience with no frills, no fluffs, no MTX, no subscription, right? That's like its biggest, I want to say, quote unquote, selling point, even though they're not selling anything, is that it's free. And that's kind of hard to beat. And then now you're coming with EQL that's like, hey, $20 for the box, $10 a month. I think for TLP players, that's easy to swallow, no problem, because they've been already paying for, whatever the daybreak access. But for emulated players, they're coming from nothing to having to pay something. So I think it's going to be harder to bring over emulated players. And I think, the one thing that has helped bring some over is the fact that Game John's involved, which is, Rogan and Secrets from two of the big classic EverQuest emulated servers. I think having them involved does help bring some of those emulated players over. But it's going to be hard because, they want their EQ untouched. They want it pristine. They want it in the way that they remember it. That's how they enjoy the experience, right? So you might get some of those players to come over and play it for a little bit and go, nah, I got to go back home. Like that's where I'm at. um, but so I don't know what to think entirely about the emulated players. So anyway, I definitely think it'll be bigger than anything TLP and live. It definitely will be bigger than the emulated servers if we're talking population. But interest from both sides. That's a I don't know, give or take. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that topic. Anything else on that topic, boys?
No, I think you nailed it with
Yeah.
the emulation talk. Yeah.
Right on. Well, that's the end of our questions that we're covering tonight. So, is there anything else that you guys want to throw out there that we didn't cover, we didn't talk about, that just popped up during the conversation, during the pod, that you might want to throw out there that we can just, it'd be fun to talk about?
I just want to add, I wanted to say I'm a huge fan of analogies, but my advice would be to people, if you're on the fence, if you're curious about it, but maybe you got turned away because of the monetization drama, just give it a try, form your own opinion. If you don't like it, cancel your subscription, but just try it. One thing I liken it to, I talk about this all the time, but imagine you used to like this burger or like a pizza joint back in the day when you were a kid, and you haven't you grew up, you moved out of town, you're visiting, and maybe you want to try it again, but 20 years later has been bought up by like some big corporation, and they're trying, they still want to sell you the food. They just don't really know, they don't know how to, I don't know, but my point is, you go, you eat, it's not the same, and, just, I guess just be a little patient. Uh, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, just try it, enjoy it, and form your own opinion. I think it'll be a truly fun experience, and you don't have to engage with the cash shop if you don't want to. But I think we did a good job, great perspectives, and that's basically all I have to add. It's just try it, and it may or may not be for you. But like Classic said too, I think it's a wonderful side piece to whatever your current MMO is. It's a great version of EverQuest to jump in and like jump back out of. So I personally am going to be playing Monsters and Memories, but this will be like a strong supporting game for me. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. And it's kind of a novelty. It's kind of a novelty. And we might see a time an age where content's rolling out. So you got Kunark, and then you get Velius and stuff like that. And it might be something that you want to jump back into when Kunark comes out, and you might, you might play it for a month or two or whatever it is, and have some fun with it. And then you might go back to Quorum or go back to P99 or go back to TLP or Monsters Memory or whatever it be, and then put it down for a few months or whatever. And then you'll hear of some patches coming out and you'll be like, hey, I got my characters. They don't go anywhere. They're still there. So I'm going to jump back in and check things out with the boys and see what's up. I will just ask you guys a completely random question though. And that, have you guys, or would you guys ever make a female character in a game? So have you, because I don't know the answer to this actually. Have you guys made a female character in a game? And if you haven't, would you, or what's your reasoning on why you stick to like the male characters?
I love this
That's a
question. I'm
go
going to jump in
ahead.
there. So I've got a very easy and fast answer. Yes, majority of my characters are male. I generally always play that, but there's one character I don't. And this actually goes all the way back to EverQuest. So back on EQ, this would have been Luclin era. Yes, I say Luclin. And back in that era, I started a female wood elf ranger, and her name was Murre, Murre. And that kind of became like that was the first character I played that was a female character. And I was like, it felt really weird doing it at the time, but I was like, I'm going to do it. I just like the look of the female ranger, wood elf, and it sounded fun. So I did it. Ended up falling in love with that. So a lot of times in games that I play, a majority I do usually create male characters, but if I make a female, it's always the same name, and it's always some sort of like a ranger or a hunter, and WoW. And yes, I do play a female character. You won't see me playing it on stream or video. It's off camera usually for me, but I do. There you go.
That's great. Yeah, back in the day before like voice chat and whatever, people know what you look like. It's easy to pass for a female character. So I would do it to troll sometimes. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I guess I do play male characters in these kind of games lately just because I want to have like the mustache and be bald and just be whatever. But no, actually like my main well, Final Fantasy 14 is probably my most played MMO, and I actually have a female character on Final Fantasy 14. Just because you can customize everything, even like the nails, the earrings, like it's just, I just wanted something nice to look at. Ms. Heim gets on me about that though, like whenever we play, so that those days are gone. But I'm not opposed to female characters. I think it's fun.
Okay, I'm down too. I flip flop all over the place. We got it's official. We like I just like my most recent Quorum playthrough was a Shadow Knight, and that's a female. Um, just whatever I'm feeling like at the time. I have a sometimes like somebody said it. Sometimes the female version of a race just looks better. So for instance, I have a era classic Warcraft character. So the era server, so it only goes to like Nax. It doesn't go to Burning Crusade or anything. I have a Grand Marshal Hunter that's a female night elf because I think the male night elves look goofy. You'll never catch me playing a male night elf. So I go with the female version. I think the female, they're less gangly, I just like that better. But I did have a
Yeah.
quick follow up as well to this question. Now, what if, like, let's go with monsters and memories. What if genders, male or female, what if they had maybe slightly different racial abilities? So what if they had gender abilities? I don't know what they could
Hmm.
be. I actually didn't. I just thought of this off the top. This is the follow up. The follow up wasn't part of it, part of the question that I thought of. But yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Maybe that's not a question. That's more of a follow up statement. Wouldn't that be interesting if they did that? Is that too risque?
I think in this day and age, it could be. It very well could be. But I think that's something interesting to explore. Yeah, for sure.
I have to admit, I need you to repeat the question for me. I missed it.
I just said it wasn't really much of a question. It was more of like a imagine, and you're just using Monsters and Memories as an example. I don't know why I feel like it fits that game because that game, it doesn't care. They just do stuff. Like they keep it classic, you know what I mean? But what if, based on if you're a male or a female, like maybe like a female dwarf, maybe they had slightly different like well, quote unquote racial abilities. So like, but they would be like racial slash gender abilities. What if a
That's
female like dwarf had like
interesting.
slightly different than the male dwarf? I just thought, just food for thought. Put something down in the comments. Anybody who's still watching at this point, you're a champ. Put something down in the comments. What could some of those be? What do you guys think?
That's a very interesting question.
Might be a little too
Awesome.
risque, but that was it.
Yeah,
Ah,
no, that's good. I
it'll be
have a
some good
quick
discussion.
question. I have a quick question for you guys, just real quick. How do you guys feel about the Luclin models in EverQuest Legends? It seems like a big group of people want Luclin models, and they don't like the classic models. I personally despise the Luclin models, and I don't want them. I like what they did with the textures and the classic models. That's just how I personally feel. But do you guys have any thoughts there? I know from like a technical standpoint, I think there were issues with the old models being displayed on mounts and stuff like that back in the day, and the Luclin models seem to do better with that. But I hate everything about them. I hate the way the pets look. I hate the ogres. I hate the Ixar. Like I don't want to use the word hate. It's a very strong word, but I just like the classic models, and I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts there.
I'll go real quick on this one. I'm glad that you brought that up because I feel like that further kind of backs up my point earlier when I was like, because you guys have played on EMUs, and for all of you out there who have played on EMUs, people despise like if you're on Quorum, most people are like, ugh, I use the classic models. You know what I mean? They don't want to use the Luclin models. I think for the most part, am I wrong? I feel like that, right? So I feel like all of these people asking for Luclin models and stuff, that kind of like further proves the point that a lot of these people are coming from like TLPs and like live EverQuest and stuff where using Luclin models is more normalized. That's it. I don't really
100%.
care. I play with the old school models, but you know what? I think I've said this before. Like I don't mind Luclin models, honestly. People hate them so. Some people, there's a group of people, EMU players typically, they just hate them so much. They don't bother me. I honestly I think Ixars look cool as hell. Like with the graphics on. I think that looks cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Luclin model hater. never never been a fan. I want the OG, and I really really hope that they keep them throughout the life of EQL. That it stays classic only, and there's never an option for the Luclin models. They had their place in their time. They've served their purpose for 25 years. But I think on EQL they need to stay out, and I'm so glad to see they change things not only with the Luclin models of the characters, but the Luclin models of the mobs, the wolf models, and the skeleton model. I can't stand the newer skeleton model. I think it looks terrible. I'm like, give me that classic everything. I want it all. um,
Yeah.
it just feels right for the game. It just always felt so out of place when you have this like new model running around in this old environment, this old polygonal environment, and then you got these weird new smooth models with weird animations. I don't know. I thought the animations are way better on classic models, in my opinion, than the Lucens ones. So, and if I talk about
Yeah.
which ones I greatly dislike, I really dislike the troll, because to me that OG troll model, there's nothing like it, man. It's that big blob on little legs. Come on. That thing was the best. And I couldn't
Yeah.
stand when I'm like, what? Why is the troll skinny now? He should be this big round thing.
No,
There you
I
go.
hear you. And
Shout out Chum Guzzler.
And can I
Word.
just say though, they've done such a great job to keep it kind of old and new at the same time in EverQuest Legends. It's kind of interesting because we have all these lessons that, hopefully the development teams have learned and, time has gone on with live EverQuest to where it is now. So just having all that knowledge and having all that emulator knowledge, like I really think this team can deliver a fresh, new, and sort of sexy experience, I guess, for lack of a better term. So it's a beautiful thing.
That thing that you said, Tane, where I agree with you. It's jarring to have new models in old EverQuest. That is jarring to me. But I get that same feeling when we end up getting to Luclin or Luclin, as I too used to call it. And I still want to call it that, but I'm just sick of the comments. But the I too get the reverse feeling where now I have old models in these new smooth lands.
Yeah. I get it. I'm with you. I understand. You're right. It does look a little weird to see an old model running around the really smooth lands, but I don't know.
My original plan was to switch over when Quorum got to Luclin, but I didn't follow through with it.
Glad you didn't. Your videos wouldn't be as good. Oh, no. No, kidding. Well, I think that's it, boys. I don't have a cool question for you guys today. But I'm glad you guys had some fun little last minute questions for the pod. It was good. So to everybody out there, that's it for today's podcast. First, I obviously want to thank Classic Slayheim for coming and hanging out, providing some excellent opinions on the questions we covered today. And you know what? We might not all agree on the topics, and I think that's good. I think it's healthy for our discussion that we do not agree on everything. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to have a good conversation where we can have counterpoints, we can have different opinions, and we can like different things. Because I mean that's how it should be, and I'm glad that we have that, and I'm sure we're going to have a whole lot more of those discussions in future pods where we do not see eye to eye on the same topic. Um, and a big thank you to the audience, you guys, for watching, sticking around. If you made it all the way to the end, man, you're a champ. Thank you for hanging in there. And we'd like to hear from you guys. Like, what did you think about the topics we covered today? What topics would you like to see us cover in the classic MMO space? We're willing to take topics from the comments and love to hear what you have to say. And if you've got a cool idea that we like, we use it in a future episode, we will definitely call you out. We'll make sure to put your name up on the screen and say thanks to you for giving us a great topic idea. And make sure you check out these guys on the screen here, Classic, Slayheim, myself, Skeletane. We've all got YouTube channels, so make sure you look us up. There will be links to our channels in the description. So make sure you check us out. We're making content all the time on classic MMO stuff, EQL, M&M, AOA in the future, whatever's coming. So thank you guys very much. And I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you on the next episode of Camp Check.